What is Shia and Sunni Muslim? In broad terms, both sides agreed that Allah is the one and the only true God and that Muhammad was his messenger. One group, Shiites, believed that Muhammad's successor should be someone in his bloodline. In contrast, Sunnis thought that the most pious individual who would follow the Prophet's customs should be the successor. Shia Muslims. For Shia Muslims, Imam is the leader of the Islamic community or Ummah after the Prophet. Their doctrine is based on an esoteric interpretation of Islam established by the Imams, religious leaders who were descendants of Muhammad and whom the Shia consider the sole interpreters of Islamic theology. For Shias, revelation never stopped by Muhammad's death. It continued to this day through the Shia Imams, so Imam is immune from sins or wrongdoing. The power of the Shia Imam is comparable to the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. He cannot be criticized or replaced. Sunni Muslims. Revelation for Sunnis ceased after Muhammad. Khalifa is the leader of Muslims. He is elected by the people on only one basis, piety, as it is stated in the Quran and Muhammad's Hadith, that piety is the only discriminating factor among humans. Being a descendant of a righteous person is meaningless. Noah was a holy prophet, but his son was a wicked. Even Muhammad's uncle, Abu Lahab, was evil. He remained enemy to Islam till his death. Khalifa does not have much power. He is not immune from sins or wrongdoing, can be criticized and even replaced. The change of capital from Medina to Kufa. In Rajab of 36 after Hijrah, January 657, Ali decided to transfer the headquarters of his government from Medina in Hijaz to Kufa in Iraq. When law and order had been restored in Basra, he appointed Abdullah ibn Abbas as its new governor and then left for Kufa, which became the new capital of Islam. Historians have tried to find out the reasons why Ali changed the capital from Medina to Kufa. Probably because Kufa had a more central position in the empire. The administrative facility of the vast and sprawling territories dictated this change, and it was easier for Ali to watch the movements of Muawiyah from Kufa than from Medina. According to the History of Islam book, Damascus was held by Muawiyah and was, therefore, the center of opposition to Ali. Of the other four cities, Makkah, at first, was in the hands of the rebel leaders, Aisha, Talha, and Zubair. In Makkah, they raised a volunteer army of 3,000 warriors. They left Makkah with their army for Basra and occupied that city. Many of those Makkans who did not go to Basra with the rebel army, gave it their material support. Thus Ali could count Makkah out. Medina had a record hardly any better. As noted before, when Uthman was killed, Medina was at the mercy of the rebels. The Muhajirin and the Ansar realized that no one in all Dar ul-Islam could save the city from being plundered, the people from being massacred, and the government from breaking down, except Ali. They, therefore, appealed to him to take charge of the government. Medina was the fountainhead of the teachings of the Quran, and it also had the mausoleum of Muhammad, the messenger of God, in it. Muhammad was the interpreter of the last message of God to humankind, and his duty was to invite humanity to live pure, noble, and chaste lives. Islam was the builder of character, par excellence, and there was no better example of chaste and sanctified life than the life of its bringer. If Medina had become like other imperial capitals of the past, then Islam's invitation to the rest of mankind would have become a mockery. Ali saved the sanctity of Medina and the ethos of Islam's missionary program by separating the spiritual and the political centers of the empire. Ali was truly prophetic in his vision. He saved Medina from degenerating into a prototype of Damascus or Baghdad or Cordova. The armor of civilization, rapidly developed in Syria, was sustained and fed by the rapidly expanding empire. Luxury is the enemy. The wealth of the conquered nations poured into Damascus, and later into Baghdad and other cities. With wealth came its concomitant luxury, and the ambition of the ruling classes to cultivate and patronize the fine arts. Greek and Persian singing and dancing girls came into the metropolitan centers of the Empire of the Arabs in a steady stream, cultivating the seeds of its end. The Umayyad rulers of Damascus lived in imitation of the Byzantine and Persian emperors. They had surrounded themselves with all the instruments of luxury and salacity, which their power could procure for them. The pristine simplicity and the egalitarianism of Islam had disappeared from Syria, if they had ever existed there in the first place. When Ali made Kufa his capital, friend and foe saw with their own eyes the Islam of Muhammad, the messenger of God. They saw that the absolute sovereign of the Muslims worked with his own hands in the fields and gardens, and fed himself and his family from the wages he earned himself. They saw that he lived on coarse barley bread, but everyone else in his dominion was well fed. They saw that though his shirt was covered with patches, his subjects were all well dressed. They also saw that he had no marble palace but lived in a mud hut, and that there were no sentinels or pickets at the door of his home, and that he was accessible to everyone at every hour of the day or night. In the interests of the security of Makkah and Medina, Ali wished to make them politically unimportant so that they would not attract unwelcome attention. The kingdom of heaven on earth, which Muhammad Mustafa had founded, had ceased, after his death, to be heavenly, and had become an artificial Greek or Persian government. Under the changed conditions, the dignity and the sacred character of the twin cities of Makkah and Medina were always in peril. Foreseeing the times ahead, Ali put both cities out of the orbit of political events. His younger son, Hussein, also had the same anxiety to protect the sanctity of the city of his grandfather. He too saw the storm clouds massing at the horizon, and he too left Medina and Makkah, just in time, to draw the attention of the government away from them. When Ali changed the capital of the empire, Muawiyah thought that he had, at last, caught Ali doing something open to question, and wrote to him that he, Ali, had abandoned the city of the Prophet, an act so reprehensible that it could not be condoned. Only 4 years later, Muawiyah himself became the absolute ruler of the empire of the Muslims, and no one could question him on any of his actions. If he had so much love for the city of the Prophet as he affected to show in his letter to Ali, he could have made it his capital. But he did not, nor did any of his successors, nor did any of the caliphs of the Abbasid dynasty. In essence, there is only one version of the Holy Quran, both Sunni and Shia Muslims recognize and believe in. They pardon Muhammad's Hadith, the second source of the Islamic Sharia laws. While Sunni Muslims recognize the entire Hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim as authentic, Shias believe that the vast of Hadith was corrupted and cannot be authenticated. They recognize only the part reported by al-Bayt, the descendants of Muhammad, which constitutes about 20% of Muhammad's Hadith. This sent a blowout to the vast majority of Sharia laws that is derived from Prophet Muhammad Hadith, which the Shias replaced by the Imam, a man who speaks of God's Holy Spirit.